Okay. All right. Let me put my timer back up here. And all right. So the timing still is fine for me. I thought I might even end up a little short. So this should work just fine. I think I have enough time to present. We're talking about non-Google search engines, specifically Baidu, Naver, Yandex, and how they differ from Google. They're very different search engines, or if you even call them a search engine. We'll get into that in a second. But it's an interesting topic, and for those that are joining that would like to know more, you can always reach out to me if that's something you want to do or to explore the ins and outs of these great little search engines. Okay, let me get my controls here. A little bit about me. I know Doc already mentioned it. I worked in-house for Ascendant companies back in 96 and 99. I co-founded a real estate portal. I was director of searches at business.com. At the time, it was a search engine. It was just purely B2B search. And it was really fun working at a search engine and learning about the ins and outs of how things work on the back end. And then I had another agency that I sold in 2004 and 2005, which is very specific to this presentation. So I wanted to open up a company that took the best practices of the US and apply them to another country. And I was fortunate enough to have an office in China from my previous acquisition. And I taught the director and our teams over there how we do things in the States, and that we formatted that to work with Baidu. And our first big client for Baidu was Intel. We hit Intel off really well in the Chinese market on Baidu, and eventually they asked us to move into different markets around the world. Eventually, other agencies and other clients found out about us, and now we're about 32 offices around the globe, mainly networked offices that are part of our group. And we handle hundreds of multinational clients. Agencies is probably about half our business, and the other half is mainly multinational clients that come to us to run in specific countries. I'm also a search award judge. I've won a search award, very proud of as well. And that's a long story. One of these days, I'd love to share it. It's really funny. Anyways, so we're going to be talking about search in China, specifically on Baidu, search in Russia, Yandex, and search in Korea, Naver. I am going to be throwing in random country fun facts as well throughout the presentation to just kind of break up an otherwise dull presentation of talking about SEO and some paid stuff. So let's start with, why does this matter? Google's global market share, as everybody knows, is massive. They own pretty much the world, except for a few markets. I used to have Korea in this slide as well. For some reason, StatCounter dropped Korea, but Korea is down there between Russia and China. And basically what it shows is that a lot of people around the world in these couple countries that we're talking about today do not use Google. So Google does not have dominance in every single market. And unfortunately, they don't have dominance in the huge market of China because they left years ago. Another thing of why it's so important to advertise or do search in these different markets is the scale and the size, right? English has 335 million speakers. China has 1.2 billion. Russia has 166 million. Korea has 77.2 million. That's a lot of speakers. That's a lot of people and a lot of opportunity. Also, another thing to note is these societies are very different, and this kind of explains why their search is different from what we would find here and what works here in the US. Is there's two different societies out there. There's one that's called an individualistic society. The other is called a collectivistic society. An individualistic society is like us. It's thinking in terms of the I. I want to do this. I want to have the best shoes. I want to prevail. It's very individualistic. Where in other countries, especially China, especially Korea, and somewhat even Russia, they were more so 10, 20 years ago, it's a very collectivistic society where it's more about we, right? That's why you find in Asia quite often people When somebody gets sick or people have flu, they wear masks and stuff, mask mandates and all this mask stuff. What is normal in these countries years ago, because they're looking at a collective society to say, let's do this together. And we even find that in search, that a lot of people, they don't just go and want to find the best shoes. They want to reach out to their community and find out what's the best shoes of the best runners in the community wearing. So perhaps we can all have these great shoes. So that's also another fact that kind of gives you an idea of how important these search engines that are different from Google in these markets. Different behaviors. Here's kind of an interesting a site. It's called Hofstede Insights, and you could basically put in any country and compare them. I put in China, Russia, South Korea, and the United States, so you can kind of see individualism differences versus indulgence differences. So even though China and a lot of these countries are huge markets, they're huge markets in mass, but indulgence-wise, they don't go and they buy 20 pairs of running shoes. They do their research to buy one good running shoe. They're not into buying tons and tons like we do here. They're also not as nearly as individualistic as we are here. Again, going back to what I mentioned earlier about collectivistic versus individualist societies. They also have huge shopping days. So 11/11 is what's called Singles Day, and it's a massive sale. It's a huge shopping phenomenon, and it trumps everything we do. If we took Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and everything together, we still wouldn't even be close to the size of Single Day. So that just kind of gives you an idea that the market, the amount, 38 billion in 2019, it's even more now as more people have moved online in these markets throughout the pandemic. It's a massive opportunity, and a lot of companies completely miss the boat because they just don't really know how to get into these markets. The other thing is these are portals. They're not necessarily search engines. They do have search engine technology, but they're very different. So on the left, you see Baidu. In the center, you have Yandex. On the right, you have Naver. That's not a clean screen with just a search box. Every one of them has a search box, but it is a feature of their search portal. So let's jump into search in China, specifically around Baidu. So Chinese internet users, as you can imagine, is massive. It's about 1 billion people in 2020 that use the internet. Quite often, most of these people, probably 75 or 80%, are using internet through their mobile devices. Baidu, as of now, has 75% market share. There are other search engines, Sogou, 360, that have smaller amounts, but Baidu is really the search engine of choice. Sogou is used in some cases when they're wanting some more variety, but Baidu is really the platform that most people are using in the Chinese market. Google is pretty much non-existent. Bing is there as well. But we're talking tiny percentages of market share. One of the things that you need to know about getting into China is the firewall, right? So the firewall is a huge preventer of a lot of things. Now, keep in mind that a search spider can't index your site if it can't retrieve it because you're blocked out of the firewall. Right? So this makes things pretty difficult. So things do need to connect through firewall. And the other point is that the broadband speed in China is relatively low. So can you imagine? You have low internet speed, you have to get to the firewall, and then you got to ping your site to try to get it into Baidu. It doesn't quite work because there's a timeout somewhere, right? So it's not going to happen. The best practice is to try to get your site hosted, or at least your content management systems hosted in China. Now, speaking of hosting, and this is where it becomes difficult, and this is why it's not just turnkey that you can get in there. You need what's called an ICP license. It's an Internet Content Provider license. In order to get this ICP license, you need to be a Chinese registered business. And in order to be a Chinese registered business, you have to have an ID of a contact person that has to be a Chinese national in China. They have to sign all of these documents and forms in order to get this approved. This is necessary to get hosted. Now, there are other ways around this. Of course, you can use Chinese CDNs and stuff like that. But just keep in mind that you do not want to allow your site to be slow. You do not want your site to be disconnected from the firewall, or it's just not going to work. Also, register a domain name. Okay, a Chinese domain name develops trust. Now, as much as people think, okay, yeah, China is the country that copies everybody's shit. Yeah, they do copy a lot of stuff. We know that, but they also know that, and they don't trust that much. Chinese people trust brands, well-known brands, but they are very reluctant to trust anything that is not well known. And that's where their research mindset goes in. Having a CN name not only helps with prioritization in search engines, it also helps develop the trust that you need to actually engage and enable these searchers and prospects to your site. Fun fact, my first one, it's only until fairly recently that diapers became a thing in China, especially rural China. All right, so let's take a look at what a search engine looks like and how it's broken down. So the search query here is Sheraton Hotel, right? And as you can see with the Sheraton Hotel, first the ad block comes up, maps come up. There's a little tiny bit of organic. We got Baidu Open, Baidu Images. We got another piece of organic here. We've got their encyclopedia, another piece of organic. So it's not quite like you would find with Google where you've got a lot of organic. You have a lot of Baidu stuff mixed in. Now, if we take ourselves away from the brand search query and look at things from an international search query, Europe travel guide, for example, you can see a little bit more of organic, right? Just a little bit more, but you're also seeing more ads. You're seeing their version of TripAdvisor, their version of Wikipedia, and so forth. So you're probably scratching your head by now like, geez, all this effort to do SEO. Yeah, it is a problem. I mean, if you want to succeed in any of these search engines, I would highly suggest advertising as well as doing organic together, because you want to increase your click-through rate, because that click-through rate is going to benefit you. Also, what I said about hosting and getting that license is very important. And you'll see that there's a little V next to a lot of links with an organic and everything. That V is verified. And you can only get verified by having that license. And a lot of people won't click on your link if you're not verified because they just don't trust you. Now we're getting more into an organic. Now, more organic is more long tail search queries, how to get a summer palace from Wang Fujing. And here you have the knowledge base that comes up first, then the map, and then you get organic listings from there. Most organic listings have a thumbnail image as well. So to get your thumbnail image in there, you need to also be that ICP license. Now you see where I'm getting with it and how this is so important to have these licenses and go through this government red tape, because it's going to benefit you even in organic. Now, when you have your company thumbnail images in there, increases click-through rate. That's going to only benefit you. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. Webmaster Tools. Now, to be indexed, URL there. Just remember, everything in their version of Webmaster Tools is in Chinese except for numbers. If it's numbers, it's always going to be in English. I'm just messing with you, by the way. I love telling people that. And then I could tell who's paying attention and who's not when I say that. Anyways, you got to submit your site to be indexed for this to work. So you start your submission, submit both the WW and non-WW versions of your site. You must have a Chinese phone number in order to open up a Webmaster Tools account. Use your Chinese name. So use 2 to 6 characters, whatever your Chinese name is. You can't put in your English name. QQ and WeChat numbers are necessary. Your location in China, choose HTTP or HTTPS, and select your categories. Prove ownership through verification. They're going to want to make sure that you are a verified owner of the site, and then submit. And then you will be crawled, right? Now, to be crawled, you want to either manually submit your URLs, which is going to take forever. You can submit your XML sitemap. You can do which is auto push, which is a JavaScript code in your page source that will auto push everything into Baidu. And there's also what's called active push, which is an API that you build yourself. Another fun fact, Chinese researchers do wear panda suits to fool cubs. I would love that job, by the way. All right, so let's go into SEO on Baidu and quick time check. Title tags should have a company name in it. Meta keywords matter. So a lot of people that maybe early, third, fourth generation SEOs probably don't know what that is. But meta keywords do matter. Descriptions, alt tags, H1 tag should match the title tag. Fresh content matters a lot, okay? And do not duplicate content. Create original content. Baidu hates duplicate content. Use anchor text and internal links. Baidu also has their own version of AMP called MIP, Mobile Instant Page. Load speed on mobile is very critical. Now, Baidu has a separate search engine for mobile. It's m.baidu.com. Baidu will automatically amp your site to make it fast. Okay, if it's not fast enough, they're going to amp your site. So make sure that you take a look at what it looks like if they're going to take it over. Here's what the user agents look like for the Baidu Spider across each one of these different products. Baidu does support robots.txt. It does support the nofollow attribute. It supports XML sitemap submissions. Like I mentioned, does not support hreflang. It does not support schema markup for structured data. There is little ways around it. I don't advise it. They do support canonical tags. They do not support JavaScript. Okay, now let's jump into paid for a second. All right, so in Baidu Paid, it's not like you could jump in and throw in a credit card. You have to use an agency or middleman that has a connection with Baidu, unless you're like Intel or somebody that has a $10 million a month to spend. You can't have a direct relationship with them. You've got to use an agency that has a relationship. We have that if you want to use us, but there's also plenty of others who will steal your money and run. We won't. All paid search ads are accelerated spend, so watch out if you don't know what you're doing, especially if you set it and forget it on a weekend. You will be out by Monday. Hey, a couple more tips. This is what a proper Baidu tag is. JD.com, and you see the little slash, authentic products at low price, quality guarantees. The point is here is the separators. Look at the Chinese separators. They need to have these little separators. Deeper pages, you can have the page name. You don't have to have the category if you don't want, but put the site name and the brand, right? So notice it's almost in reverse of a title tag. Deeper pages are a little bit different. On the bottom there is Baidu editorial guidelines that you should read if you're getting into this. There is a deposit required. The minimum is $1,000. We recommend $7,500. There's a setup fee as well that Baidu charges to get your account going. It takes about 7 days to open the account. You need to provide a business license along with what's called a CHOP, a stamp, proving that you're a viable business. If you're e-commerce, you need to take Chinese payments, Alipay, UnionPay, or whatever you need to do here. There are different types of ads. Baidu information feed ads is similar to Google Discovery. It shows up in mobile. Baidu Knowledge is another area of Baidu that's like Quora, and you could do Quora ads within Baidu Knowledge. Fun fact, you can buy live crabs from vending machines in China. I know, isn't that trippy? I've never done that, by the way. Okay, so that's enough for Baidu. I'm keeping close tabs on time. We're going to jump into Russia now, so specifically around Yandex. Russian search engine market share. Yandex has 57% of the market share. Google has 39%. This is of Yandex radar. I asked Yandex directly to give me a more updated one. This is the most updated they got. So we can imagine that Yandex is actually probably around 49% and Google a little bit higher. People use Google because they do get a lot of good search results in Google Russia. But Yandex, again, is that more local portal. Yandex is built on the Russian language. It's going to give a better portalized result. For example, I could, if I had something wrong with my building, I could go into Yandex and say, what's wrong with my gas? And Yandex will know exactly where I'm located and it'll respond to me exactly what's wrong with my gas. Now, if I did that with Google, it would probably come up with some gas company in, I don't know, Milwaukee. So Google, Yandex's core business is a search engine, of course, and the portal. They have ride sharing, food delivery, classifieds, media services, and self-driving vehicles. I have no idea why, but who knows? They are also the largest internet population in Europe with 109 million. So there's a big, massive market there. This is what the search engine in Yandex looks like. You've got news, you've got the search query section, you've got weather, traffic, maps, TV listings, which are all local TV listings, mail, which is a very popular feature, all on your home page. Now here's a search result. So you can see in the red, the paid search results in the top and the right, and then you've got organic results in the middle. It's very similar to older Google with the paid results on the right bar. There's also a lot of user intent personalization, like I mentioned before. In this case, in this example, you've got the word Madagascar. So here somebody comes in and searches for Madagascar, they will know enough about the user that that person is actually looking for the country, not necessarily the movie. Where it might be a father, where they know it's a father a certain time of day, he's looking for cartoons all the time for his kids, it's going to result with a movie. Note, the algorithm does take forever to index. So don't be disappointed if you are up and down all over the place on Yandex. It's very, very common. They've got a very chaotic algorithm. It's very, very advanced and it's very, very good. But just don't be disappointed if you suck horribly one month and you're great the next month. You will be for sure down another month later and you won't know why. Fun fact, on September 12th, not too far away, that's the day of conception. So on June 12th, you can actually win prizes for having a baby in Russia. A couple SEO tips on geo-targeting. SERPs are different depending on where you are. Get links from those regions, right? You want to get those links. So now you've got Serbia, you've got Far East, you've got the Ural Mountains. Get links from these. Treat these as countries. So if that's the market that you want to be in, that's what you want to concentrate on. Okay. Use Yandex Webmaster Tools to specify regions that you're in. Add regions in your title and your meta and your H1 tags. So you want to do that. Geo-targeting is what's really key on Yandex. Also watch your metrics. Yandex has a really good tool, Yandex Metrica. And yeah, it's in Russian here, but it's actually, they have an English version. Unlike China, Baidu, unlike Baidu, everything that Yandex has, they also have an English version, and that English version is fantastic. Yandex is also really good at helping you with getting started, getting keyword research and doing that. They will help you and help build a lot of stuff internally for you. But do try getting Yandex metrics. There's also a little way to get into China too by having Yandex metrics on there. Baidu doesn't block Yandex as much as it does Google Analytics. So, you may find a discrepancy between the two and be surprised that, hey, you know what, maybe I'm getting a lot more traffic than I thought in China just by using Yandex Metrica. So, definitely watch your metrics. Look at click-through rate, look at time on site. All of these things matter. Search queries, conversions, number of backlinks that traffic's coming from. If Yandex is looking at it through analytics, they're also putting that into their algorithm. Many factors are the same as Google. Domain age matters. hreflang is supported as long as you use XML sitemaps. Fresh quality content. Do not use JavaScript or Flash. They are not into duplicate content either. So treat it as Google, which is good because Google has the other 50% of the market share. So as long as you're doing that, you should be okay. Russians, by the way, are not taught to smile in school. Now let's jump into a couple other things. Yandex search. Yandex has a number of ad types as well. So there's text ads that you're all familiar with. Of course, they have ad networks. They've got image ads, dynamic banners that you can buy. Like I mentioned before, Yandex can do a lot of this keyword work for you and have them do it. Don't just translate your Google stuff and think it's going to work in Yandex. It's a different audience and they use different keywords. So you want Yandex to build that out. Yandex also allows for retargeting, custom audiences, and a lot of other stuff that may go away here in the US because of privacy. It's not so much there, and you can still leverage a lot of these third-party cookie stuff and everything else in that market. Couple other things on the paid search front. 2 to 3 keyword averages is what you're looking at. Don't translate keywords like I mentioned before. Use Yandex WordStat, which is a free keyword research tool. That'll give you some volume from the keywords that you find. And then use Yandex Metrica search query reporting. It'll give you a lot of great long tail recommendations. Here's some match type symbols. They are different than the match type symbols that you would find on Google. So just know that there are some differences here, and you would want to use these when you're building up a paid campaign. Also, Yandex Ad Groups. Ads are rotated until the system finds an ad that has the highest click-through rate. So they want the highest CTR. Last fun fact on Yandex, Russians have an event where you race with an inflatable partner every year. They do this. Isn't it funny? In cold water. So let's jump into Korea, Naver. Korea search market, 50 million users, a population of 70 million. So 20 million must be kids that don't use the internet or people that are too old to use it. And we're talking South Korea here, so don't ask me about North Korea. It has nothing to do with this. Google has a big Gen Z and millennial population. That's probably why Google is in Korea has become so popular. YouTube is also more widely used than anything else. DOM now focuses more. DOM is another search engine that used to be really big. Now they're not. They focus on the what's called Kakao chat platform. One thing about Naver is it never ends. You don't have a page 1 and page 2. You turn that thing on, that thing just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So here's what it looks like. Here's what the PC version looks like. Here's a search for Rolex. Just see how it just goes forever and ever. Here's a generic search for watch on the third one right there. It just goes forever. So think Baidu with all of these different pieces. It's actually hard to find organic in there. Naver's main landing search engine results. If you want to do paid, it's an paid hourly banner. You've got news, you've got daily readings. On the brand terms, you can do paid brand search ads, click choice ads, organic ads, blogs, and what's cafe, which is kind of like their forum. And then generic search engine results, of course, is PPC ads, shopping ads. They have other things as well. And that's where there are some organic results. Fun fact, you'll never see a Korean with a beard. Couple SEO things, set up Naver webmaster tools. It's very old school, very generic. Have a Korean language website, please. That's important. Korean CCTLD is preferred, but if you don't have that, it will default to a .com. Use meta keyword data. It's a major ranking factor. We're talking old school. Length should be 40 characters for title, 80 for descriptions. The main keywords should be used in all metadata and page content. Also, number of referring backlinks and their quality are going to matter. Keyword relevance, content and keywords should match. Freshness and quality. You need to have a mobile-friendly site. Paid media does influence SEO. That's why I've mentioned that before. Favors easy-to-use websites with fast loading speeds. They do not support hreflang. Now, going into the ads, I'm not going to go through this really fast because I don't want to run out of time, but click choice ads they have, which is their CPC auction-based ones. You can use a credit card, so you don't have, it's not like Baidu. You can, same with Yandex, you can use a credit card. It's easy to pay just like you would on Google. Brand search ads, these are brands. You have a brand, you can do a very big ad. I highly recommend it because you really get the top priority of the page. The minimum is $500 and it is based on CPM. There's other ads, of course, banner and shopping ads that are kind of like PLAs on Google, or I think they're called shopping ads, not anymore. Another fun fact, have you eaten well means how are you in Korean. A couple other paid search tips. All advertisers must be registered Korean companies with a website in Korean. You should have a location there. Invoicing is not an option. You have to pay up front. Limited English interfaces, so you need to have a Korean. And the only keyword match type is exact. Okay, so no RSAs, no broad match, no phrase match, or anything else you might be used to. There's very limited API access too. This is more details on click choice ads and brand search ads, and just more details about what they are, how they work. You get a good idea. I mentioned already it's $500, and there's a lot of opportunity there on Naver to run these. There's also what's called power content ads. That's where you get an image, you really stand out. Click choice plus ads. These are mobile only ads with unique user interfaces. And then, of course, shopping ads, which are like shopping ads on Google. Finally, fun fact, South Koreans will always be older than you. When you were born, you're actually 1. And to review, this is thanks to my friends at WebCertain who came up with this. They also gave me some good stuff on the Baidu section here. We've got our Chinese team as well that gave us a lot of good data on some of these SEO stuff. But this is a good breakdown of the differences between Google, Baidu, Yandex, Naver, which is basically everything that I mentioned throughout this presentation on a single slide. And one last thing, you do want to get a local for help. This is not something you really want to get some college student here to do for you. Get a local. They know the market. They know what's going to work, and they most importantly know what's not going to work. And that's it for me. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, you must have rehearsed that a dozen times to get your timing down perfectly. Just about the time I got my 1 minute alarm, you wrapped up. That's amazing. That's a good stuff, boy. I tell you, I had no idea that Baidu particularly is so stringent.
Yes, yeah, it's not an easy place to get into.
That must have been intimidating at the get-go when you first decided to start working both there and in South Korea.
Yeah, it's funny because when I started, I picked China because I had very little competition. There's a guy named Shaq that some of the old school people know in our industry. Yeah. He went to China and he was my competition. And then he met some dude to start a Spotify. And now he's a billionaire because he helps start Spotify. So, and here I am still in China, definitely not a billionaire, but whatever.
Well, at least you're still in China. That's 1 out of 2, man.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Michael. Really appreciate it. I don't see any questions coming in. Just a heads up for everybody, in case we have a hiccup, Steve is getting rained on. Rain sometimes causes his internet to go south, in which case I will have to jump out of here, jump into the control panel, and try to get things back online again. So if we disappear, don't go away. Give it 5 minutes. Hopefully, we'll get it back up. Even more hopefully, it won't be an issue. But okay, we do have a question came in. Brian Nelson says, "What are some other major search engines that you didn't touch on today, or are these the major players we should be aware of?"
That's a good question. There is a Czech search engine called Seznam, which in the Czech Republic, I think it's about 55% market share. The other search engines, I mean, 360 and Sogu in China, they have really repositioned their search engine. So they're almost not worth it anymore. Same with Dom in Korea. Now it's really Google and the search engines that I mentioned, and the Seznam in the Czech Republic. Everything else is kind of not there.
Okay, and I have a question. Who's dominant in Japan? Is it Google?
Yeah, Google definitely, but Yahoo Japan is also half the market share. It's a very portalized experience, but powered by Google. So it's, yeah. So you're going to be fine with Google Japan in Japan.
Okay, interesting stuff. I do not see myself growing the intestinal fortitude to try that. Thank you very much for your effort, particularly given the fact I know you felt like warmed over death over the last several days. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Hi, Frank. Good to see you, buddy.
Yep.
All right.
That is our. Go ahead.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Michael.